Daddy? Daddy?
The Silent Killer is the first episode that puts Dallas on the path to what may be its greatest season. It also reveals a problem with the writers not being sure what to do with Pamela and Bobby now that the bloom is off their Romeo and Juliet romance. JR is grousing about Cliff Barnes' increasing power and status, and of course Sue Ellen is only too happy to twist the knife.
Who would have thought that such an insignificant little man like Cliff Barnes could cause so much trouble?
They're at the airport, picking up Sue Ellen's mother Patricia and sister Kristin. Kristin is now played by Mary Crosby, daughter of the legendary crooner Bing Crosby, and she's the actress who would become synonymous with the role. Coincidentally, Cliff Barnes is also there picking up his father Digger, who is now played by longtime TV character actor Keenan Wynn. Digger is dried out, semi-employable, and coherent now.
What'd you bring me all this way for? I was doing real good out there in California.
I got a surprise for you.
Meanwhile, Pamela is spending a lot of time with baby John. Bobby thinks that she's compensating over her guilt at Cliff being the father of the baby. Ellie comes in and tells them that they should have one of their own, to which Bobby helpfully replies that he and Pam are doing it on the rig.
I can't think of better news to start the day.
She said, hey, you too, I was once like you and I like to do the wild ride.
Elsewhere, Lucy accurately describes Kristin as a troublemaker. Ray adopts the Bobby role in the conversation and gaslights Lucy, chalking her animus up to jealousy. On cue, the Shepards arrive at the ranch. Patricia and Kristin get to meet baby John for the first time.
Inconceivable!
Kristin is already more interested in John Ross Sr., though. John Ross II. Cliff takes his dad to the Ewing building and shows him the royalty checks from the land scheme he pulled off in Sue Ellen's sister. Digger is ecstatic until Cliff says his real goal is to run Ewing Oil into the ground and bankrupt Jock and JR.
You know, you're getting to sound just like one of the Ewings. I only want what's coming to me.
Cliff clearly didn't get the reaction he was hoping for on that one. The Ewing men meet to discuss the best way to rid themselves of Cliff for good. Bobby says there's an investigation into graft in the state senate, but JR thinks they need to be more aggressive and underhanded. I know, I'm shocked too. At Cliff's apartment, Digger suddenly collapses. Pam and Cliff demand that he go to see a doctor because he also has a fever. Cliff tells Pam he's not sure how long he can keep the baby's paternity under wraps. Back at the ranch, we see Kristin's casting change paying immediate dividends, as Mary Crosby twists a knife in Sue Ellen every bit as expertly as Sue Ellen does. They actually do make believable sisters in look and mannerism. Interestingly, this scene establishes Kristin as a sort of mirror universe Lucy Ewing.
Lucy's very perceptive. Sometimes she can see right through that veneer that we older people like to hide behind.
Both women have insight into people's secrets and vulnerabilities, but they use them for different reasons. Lucy is fiercely defensive of the people she loves, while Kristin finds people's worst insecurities. Kristin describes the men she met in California as married, gay, or in therapy, a sequence that could probably describe Lucy's love life just as accurately. Sue Ellen advises Kristin to stay single as long as possible, but Kristin says she wants the money and status that a man like JR can provide. She openly implies that she'll make a move on him if Sue Ellen doesn't fulfill her wifely duties. The doctor discovers that the Barneses carry the genetic disease Neurofibromatosis, a real-life disease that causes nerve tumors that can lead to neurological problems, chronic pain, and loss of hearing and vision. It can be deadly in infants, which Cliff discovers is what happened to his older brother and sister between he and Pamela. By the way, you should get used to the word neurofibromatosis. It's going to come up a lot.
Neurofibromatosis.
This is a pretty good payoff to Pam and Cliff's separate threads. Cliff realizes that baby John might be living on borrowed time, and Pamela learns that if she and Bobby do have a baby, there's a strong possibility it won't live through the year. I should note that Dr. Hollister is played by William Bassett, who would return as Gurney in season 12. Here he's in full dramatic TV doctor mode, replete with dramatic pauses.
Mr. Barnes, did you have any other children?
Ellie and Patricia bond and talk about Sue Ellen's struggles. Patricia waves away postpartum depression. She instead focuses on baby John's rich future running Ewing Oil by his daddy's side, which is very nearly what happened. Pamela tells Cliff to back off while she takes the baby in to be checked for signs of neurofibromatosis.
Neurofibromatosis.
I've got to get to Sue Ellen. I've got to tell her about little John.
What?
JR is upset to hear that Sue Ellen will not be taking the baby into the pediatrician. He's so distraught, he barely even enjoys his leching over Pamela's bathing suit. Sue Ellen reminds JR and the audience that she considers baby John a punishment. Cliff is also miffed that Pamela is cutting him out of the whole process. so he takes it upon himself to ambush Sue Ellen during lunch. Kristin is impressed by his power, but Sue Ellen blows him off and he doesn't get the chance to tell her about the neurofibromatosis.
Neurofibromatosis.
Jock is eager to meet Harv Smithfield's hot new lawyer, but not nearly as eager as JR is to shout his name.
Slater, I want to meet that young new lawyer. What's his name?
Alan Beam.
Masterstroke.
JR and Alan meet in an out-of-the-way dive because, of course, they do. Alan agrees to be his hatchet man in the plot to cut Cliff Barnes off at the knees.
I talk straight, you wouldn't have any need for me.
I'll say. Alan does nail Cliff Barnes' motives, though. He's power-hungry, not revenge-driven. Revenge is just an excuse. Pamela passes herself off as Baby John's mother at a doctor in Fort Worth. The doctor finds nothing but warns Pamela that she should get checked out as well because the neurofibromatosis could cause baby cancer.
Neurofibromatosis.
Pamela decides to keep this a secret from Bobby. Cliff bonds with Digger, and Digger says it's a good thing they found out about the neurofibromatosis before Cliff had kids.
Neurofibromatosis.
Over drinks, Kristin accidentally lets it spill that they ran into Cliff Barnes at the Gardens restaurant. Jock describes the Gardens as a, quote, female restaurant with watercress sandwiches. Yeah, that may be, but I hear their gender roles are to die for. My favorite thing about this scene is that you can see Kristin observing every interaction and figuring things out like an alpha velociraptor.
That one. When she looks at you, you can see she's working things out.
That's just good acting. Fast forward to Kristin trying to kill Sue Ellen with kindness and then eavesdropping on a fight between Sue Ellen and JR. Sue Ellen tells him to drop the nice guy routine because she just doesn't care anymore. Kristin conveniently positions herself to intercept JR when he storms out.
You sure you wouldn't rather go up to bed?
It's a little early for me.
Ah, I see what you did there.
Clever girl.
We then get an ovation-worthy moment where Sue Ellen finds a hidden bottle of bourbon in her dresser and opts to toss it out rather than go back to drinking. The rest of the crew arrives home, and Pamela tells Bobby she can't go through with having a baby, but she refuses to tell him why in a needlessly dramatic storyline. Also notable is a rare sound production gaffe where Bobby is clearly dubbed over shouting "why" at Pamela, and it doesn't even sound like Patrick Duffy doing the shouting.
Why? Why?
We close with Pam holding Baby John, and we're out. The Silent Killer recast two pivotal roles in Dallas lore. Mary Crosby as Kristin is the most obvious, but Keenan Wynn's Digger Barnes gives the character a much different air. For one thing, Wynn is nearly 4 inches taller than David Wayne, so immediately there's a stature difference. But it's not just limited to physical differences. Wayne played Digger as a broken-down drunk, which honestly is how I'll always remember him. Wynn zeroes in on the aspects of Digger that make him come off as more of a wistful prospector. Wynn has 282 credits to his name on IMDb, so if you watch TV or movies anywhere from World War II until Miami Vice, it's a good bet that you've seen him. His most notable appearances came in The Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and a great role in Dr. Strangelove.
Okay. I'm gonna get your money for you. But if you don't get the President of the United States on that phone, you know what's gonna happen to you?
What?
You're gonna have to answer to the Coca-Cola Company.
Crosby, on the other hand, was a relative newcomer, despite being born into the business. In fact, producers were wary of casting her in the role of a vixen, given the Crosby's squeaky clean image. They were worried that no one would buy her as a conniving villain. Bullet dodged on that one. Although, not for JR. The episode itself is fine, structurally speaking. You have some secrets that can't be spilled, and then you introduce a twist that puts the characters in an awkward position. That's just good drama. Their neurofibromatosis thing gets old in a hurry, especially since Pamela's reasons for not telling Bobby are just never logically established.
Bobby and I have been trying to have a baby. How do I tell him I can't?
It's an example of a character making a nonsensical decision because that's what the writers needed them to do. Ostensibly, Pamela is trying not to ruin her marriage by revealing the neurofibromatosis to Bobby and having him realize she can never safely have children. But instead, she just ruins her marriage by telling him she can't have children and he should shut up about it.
I'm trying to understand you and you're not explaining anything.
You might notice that the Sue Ellen, Kristin, JR stuff and the Bobby and Pam stuff start to diverge widely in quality in this episode. And that's a trend that continues through the first half of this season. But we got evil Kristin on board. Now the fun can begin.